Spotlights sweep across a glassy ballroom in Victoria Island. Journalists press against velvet ropes. A new logo, Mandy Woods Incorporated, shimmers on a towering LED screen. The master of ceremonies clears his throat, promising a historic unveiling. In the front row sits a family, the Woods family, bathed in camera flashes, a stepmother adorned in pearls, two daughters rehearsing sympathy, and a son, Joshua, wearing a suit a size too loud for his confidence. They smile for photographs they did not earn. They wave at applause they did not build. The MC lifts a card. Tonight, we relaunch this beloved company under new leadership. The new owner has chosen to remain in the background until this moment. A drum roll rumbles, loud ovation. The lights dim. The curtain begins to part. To understand how we arrived at this breathless second, we must return to where the story truly began. But before we return to where it all began, if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the twists in stories like this. Her name was Brenda, first child of Mr. Woods Godswill, and the only child of his first wife, Mrs. Mandy Godswill. Mandy was the kind of woman who could turn a single seed of an idea into a harvest. She and Woods built a company with sweat that looked like grace. When Brenda was 10, Mandy died, and the home dimmed. 3 years later, Woods remarried. The new wife arrived with a smile that concealed sharp corners. In time, she bore 3 daughters and 1 son. Their laughter filled the corridors, but so did something else. An insistence, quiet at first, that Brenda's place is not in the new family. Woods would not allow it. He shielded his daughter. To keep peace, Brenda was sent to a private boarding school where she learned that solitude can be a tutor and excellence a refuge. She consumed books and rose through grades. After her secondary school, she gained admission into Covenant University, where she studied business administration and graduated first class, top of her class. The applause that day sounded like a promise. After graduation, Woods wanted her in Lagos for NYSC, tucked safely into his company's structure. Brenda refused, gently but firmly. She wanted to learn business outside the shadow of her name. When her call-up letter posted her to Abuja, she accepted. She worked in the HR department of a manufacturing company, but she didn't stay behind that desk. At lunch, she visited production. After hours, she read sales reports and sat with finance to understand cash flows. She learned to listen, to ask, and to measure. NYSC ended. The company offered her a job as a business development manager. Her father was disappointed. He had expected her return. Brenda promised him this: 5 years. "Give me 5 years to learn the ropes in the open market," she said, "and I'll return to Lagos ready to steward what you built." He agreed. He told her the empire would be hers to run. From the hall outside his study, the stepmother overheard. She walked in and smiled as if in support of the statement, and tucked that information away like a blade. 4 years and 8 months into Brenda's promise, Woods fell ill. The kind of illness that speaks in riddles. Tests returning clean, while the body answers with weakness. He withered under questions no doctor could provide answers to. 2 months later, he died. News reached Brenda in Abuja like a winter wind. She booked the next evening flight to Lagos. Her father's driver met her at the airport. They drove into the night, headlights stitching a silver line along the road. Then, a truck, out of nowhere, sudden and senseless, rammed into the car. Metal screamed. Glass exploded. Fire woke like a monster. The truck driver leaped from his truck, looked into the car, and ran. The car burned until its bones were unrecognizable. 2 bodies were found inside, charred beyond recognition. The city whispered. Brenda was gone. On the day of the burial, 2 coffins lay side by side, father and daughter, lowered into earth that could not answer how. The stepmother wept into lace. Joshua clenched a jaw he mistook for leadership. The cameras recorded grief and captured calculation. With Brenda gone, the stepmother and her children took over and moved quickly. They took keys, titles, and board seats, mistaking inheritance for ability. The company, once disciplined, became a playground. Expenses grew legs. Projects had no spine. Joshua became MD/CEO because he was the oldest son, not because he knew the cost of a mistake. The sisters were uninterested in anything that didn't glitter. For them, it's all about spending. Who cares how money is made when you can spend it lavishly? By the 3rd year after the tragedy, the empire groaned. Creditors circled. Investors began to sell their shares at face value, eager to escape before the whole structure collapsed. Curiously, every time someone wanted out, one man was ready to buy. Mr. Kimberlin. Quiet, precise. A shadow that paid in full. Here's how the ownership looked on paper. 35% belonged to Mr. Woods, now controlled by Joshua, eager to convert equity into lifeboats. 25% had been Mandy Godswill's, but she was gone, and with Brenda gone too, the shares floated in legal limbo. Mandy's only surviving relative, her sister, refused to authorize any sale. She knew the story of those shares, how Mandy bled to build them. The remaining 40% belonged to 4 outside shareholders. Each one eventually sold to Kimberlin. When the banks threatened foreclosure, Kimberlin stepped forward, not to sit in the chair, but to steady the building. He bought the 35% block from Joshua and negotiated a repayment plan with the bank. Strangely, he never interfered with operations. He was the kind of man who could own a map and never plant a flag. At least, not yet. Meanwhile, the family's living became expensive as their income thinned. They sold properties the way people sell furniture in the flood. Frantic, careless, blind. One house remained unsold, the family home. It was in Mandy's name, inherited from her late father. At Brenda's mother's insistence and pleas, Woods had agreed they stayed in that family home because of the memories the home held for her. Memories had consecrated those walls. Now, paperwork protected them. The family was eventually grateful they couldn't sell the property, because that's the only place they could call home with all properties gone. 1 year later, a letter arrived, an invitation to a closed relaunch party under new leadership. The message framed the event as a tribute to the founders and requested the family's presence to honor the legacy. The stepmother accepted with theatrical gratitude. At last, attention. At last, a stage. And so we return to the ballroom. Back to the velvet ropes, the champagne, the curated nostalgia. The MC's voice swells, Please rise to welcome the new owner of Mandy Woods Incorporated. The stage brightens. Footsteps. A silhouette. The curtain parts. Gasps slice the air. The cameras stutter. A pearl bracelet drops to the floor, the sound absurdly loud. Brenda steps into the light, alive, poised, wearing a smart navy pantsuit like armor. The family freezes, faces draining of color. The audience looks from stage to front row and back again, trying to square a circle the grave refused to hold. She does not speak immediately. She lets the room breathe the impossible. Then, with a microphone in hand and her breath steady, she begins, not with triumph, but with truth. 2 months before my father died, he called me in Abuja. He said, "The doctors can't find what's wrong, but something is wrong." He asked to be moved out of the house into a private hospital. A month later, he said he felt stronger. He told me he'd transferred his foreign investments to me and that he was ready to retire. He wanted me back in Lagos in 2 months to take over. I promised him I would. The audience leans in. The family sinks deeper into their chairs. Brenda continues. The week after that call, I received news that he had died. 3 days after being discharged. I requested an autopsy. I booked an evening flight to Lagos. While I was on that plane, I met a lady coming to Lagos for an event. We got talking, and when I told her where I was headed, she asked for a ride. On the way from the airport, a truck slammed into our car. It felt deliberate. By a miracle, I crawled out through a broken door and stayed in the dark. I watched the truck driver walk to the wreck, peer inside to confirm what he wanted to see, and run. Moments later, the car exploded. The driver and the lady died in that accident. She tells them she called Mr. Kimberlin, her private lawyer, a man unconnected to the Godswill family. He took her into the quiet, and together they made a decision. Say nothing. Show nothing. Investigate everything. Brenda goes on. We hired independent investigators. They stealthily spoke to staff, neighbors, anyone who would talk. A housemaid finally did. She described a pattern. Tiny doses of a rare, slow-acting toxin. Administered until my father's body failed tests without tripping alarms. Later, the investigators found the truck driver. He confessed. He had been paid to finish what poison began. She does not say the stepmother's name. She does not need to. The room has already drawn the line between shadow and subject. Brenda continues a revelation. While we investigated, the company faltered. Investors wanted out. With resources my father transferred, I quietly bought the shares through Mr. Kimberlin. When the bank knocked, I answered with a plan. I preserved my mother's 25% in her name, where it belongs, until the company is healthy enough to honor it properly. Then she turns, gently, to the front row. I was presumably buried, but without my body. Tonight, I am the body that refuses to remain buried. This company will honor my parents' names. It will honor every honest hand that built it. And those who tried to erase us will answer to the law. She lifts her hand. At the ballroom's edge, uniformed officers step forward, calm and unhurried, like a verdict. The stepmother rises, a protest forming and dying in the same breath. Joshua's bravado deserts him. The daughters stare at their reflections in their phones, hoping screens can shield reality. The officers read quiet rights. Handcuffs gleam like punctuation. The room, full of noise a moment ago, learns silence. In the days that follow, headlines rush to catch up with the truth. The investigation widens. The truck driver is charged. The maid is protected. The bank files are reopened. And for the first time in years, the company's offices breathe like a place of work again, not a stage for performance. The new signage, Mandy Woods Incorporated, isn't just branding. It is a memory made permanent. The board is reconstituted. Brenda takes over the leadership. Kimberlyn takes an advisory seat, no longer a shadow, but a steward. The repayment plan holds. Suppliers return calls. Payroll finds its rhythm. Brenda visits the family home that could never be sold. A place her mother loved because it remembered her parents before the world knew their names. She stands in the doorway and lets the air tell her old stories. Her mother's laughter in the kitchen. Her father's voice practicing speeches that would one day be quoted. People will say this story is about revenge. They are wrong. It is about memory, what an honest legacy deserves, and about truth, which buries lies the way morning buries mist. They thought she was gone. They thought the empire was theirs to waste. But the thing about roots is this. When the wind stops pretending to be a friend, roots hold. And when the curtain finally lifts, truth steps forward, alive, unshaken, and takes back its name.